Recently I saw a post about DistroWatch, our premier website for ranking distros based on the page hits on this specific website, resulting in funny things like MX Linux always being somewhere near the top, and then people asking, what the hell is MX Linux? Don't pay too much mind to the ranking here, they've always been a little bit weird. Not the main point I'm getting at here though. The other function of this website is keeping track of distros that basically nobody has ever heard of. Things like Prism Linux, or Sparky Linux, or Ideal OS, which has a logo which looks awfully like the Manjaro logo, with a couple of cuts missing. I'm not here to single out any of these distros, these just happen to be near the top and happen to be great examples of distros you didn't know existed. And according to this website, there are almost 500 actively developed distros, with about 650 discontinued and about 40 or so considered dormant. Dormant is basically discontinued, except there hasn't been a formal announcement from the project is dead. And keep in mind, DistroWatch may not have everything, so these should be considered general ballpark low estimate numbers. As an example, let's just go and click on random distribution and see where it takes us. Watch it be something I actually know. Bad example. Really bad example. Let's try another one. Okay, much better. Don't know about this one. If you've never heard of this distro, or frankly, pretty much any other distro on this website, you might be asking, what is the deal with all of these distros? Why do we have so many distros? And if you're switching to Linux, this can be something where once you step out of like the normal stuff, the Ubuntu's, Fedora, Pop OS, Casio OS, I don't know, Gentoo, Arch Linux, things that actually have user bases that people actually use, you might realize there's like a lot here. And you start to realize that a lot of these distros don't really seem to do anything different. So I've seen a lot of people suggest, oh, we should just unify all of these distros. Everyone should just work together on some like core set of shared agreed upon functionality. Or I'll see someone say on the other side, well, Linux is just a kernel. There is no Linux operating system. So if people weren't making these distros, there wouldn't be a Linux operating system. And that is also true. When you have 5 or 10, but then you get to 50 or 100 or 300 or about 1,000 or so where we are right now, and you have to ask, was there a point where we didn't need any more distros? And why do people keep making them? The absolute simplest reason is philosophical differences over what a Linux distro should actually be. Should it be a rolling release or a point release? Should it be something like Arch Linux or Ubuntu? Should it have a desktop? Should it not? Should it have multiple options? Is it going to have multiple options in the installer or multiple options as different ISOs? Something like Casio OS versus what Fedora Linux does. How should proprietary software be handled? Should it be handled at all? Should it be packaged? Should it be in a third-party repo? Should it be in the main repo? Should it be pre-installed? What about NVIDIA drivers? How do we handle those? Do we pre-install those, but then don't pre-install something else like Steam? Do we even handle NVIDIA drivers with the proprietary version, or do we just offer the open source version? Is gaming a focus or not? Now, you can game on literally any distro, but should we make changes in the hopes of attracting gamers? Should we have a custom version of Proton, a custom kernel that has some different scheduler that makes gaming better? Should we have all of these random little things that Casio OS does that makes it so attractive to gamers? Or should it just be a regular general purpose distro? And if it is going to be a general purpose distro, is it going to be focused at, you know, workstations? Are we going to have a server variant? Like, what are we doing here? And how do we manage our community? Should we manage it? Do we even, like, have official community channels? Or is that not our place to manage? Any single one of these choices can lead to a split, and that split can lead to a fork or a whole new distro base being created. Some of these, like community management, might be direct conflicts where there's absolutely no way to get around them without doing some sort of compromise or changing what your stance is going to be. But when it comes to something like point release or rolling release, you could just have two different upgrade tracks. You could have the point release version, like, Debian, and then you could have effectively the rolling version in Debian SID. Like, you can have those under the same banner, and whilst they are technically separate distros, they're still part of the same family. This is what things like Ubuntu do with Kubuntu, Ubuntu, things like that, or Fedora with the various spins. I don't know how many there are, a lot of them. Sometimes two distros have a very similar core philosophy, but a very different idea on how to actually execute it. Take, for example, the DIY distros, where you take a basic installed distro, it comes with a TTY and some basic Unix tools, a package manager, and that's pretty much it. Sometimes two distros have a very similar core philosophy, but a very different idea on how to actually execute it. Take, for example, the DIY distros, where you start with a very simple distro, you get a TTY, basic Unix tools, maybe a package manager, and then you go and add all of the things you want on top of that, all of the desktops and all of the drivers, and really you turn it into your own custom distro. Let's look at Arch Linux and Gentoo. In many ways, these attract a very similar kind of audience, usually a racing audience, usually an audience that really wants to control the kind of software they're running. But Gentoo, it's all about compiling your own software, caring about compile flags, and Arch Linux, well, Gentoo does have binaries as well, but that's just not a thing in the main Arch Linux repos. Any of the source code, that's going to be in the AUR, and that's sort of a external separate thing. Then you can go even further with Linux from scratch. This is a system where you don't even have a distro. You have to bootstrap it from an existing distro and then compile every single individual tool. Gentoo, generally people start from one of the later stages. Here you're starting from getting a compiler. Moving on from that, many Linux distros, frankly, if we're being entirely honest, are not really distros at all. They're a post-install script that is packaged as an ISO, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. But if you fork off of something like Arch Linux, you don't provide any infrastructure, any of the repos. Maybe you compiled something that's included in the ISO. Maybe you wrote a couple of scripts here and there. Maybe you did some racing. Ooh, some racing. But everything else you do literally is just from the Arch repos, from the Ubuntu repos, from the Fedora repos. It applies exactly the same way on any other distro base. If that infrastructure was turned off tomorrow, your distro would die along with it. It is a distro on paper, but the exact same thing could be achieved by just running a bash script on that base distro. And again, there is absolutely nothing wrong with this. If this is what you want to do, if this is the kind of distro you want to make, be my guest, that is totally fine. But it does help to inflate the numbers. A lot of distros, frankly, are just this. Once again, there is nothing inherently wrong with this, and a lot of these distros get published because, frankly, why not? It's their own personal distro, and they want to have easy access to it. They want to install it on all of their different machines, and maybe they have their friends using it because their friends want tech support, so you might as well just put them on the same thing you're using, so at least you can provide some level of support. And if you're doing that, yeah, it kind of does make sense to package it up as if it is like a real actual distro. And once you've done that, the extra effort in just letting other people use it is relatively minimal. Now, a lot of these distros you shouldn't rely on because they're made for an individual. You're probably not going to get a good level of support. There's probably not going to be a strong community around it. But sometimes distros kind of start like this and then evolve into something considerably bigger. Take, for example, Nabara Linux by Glorious Eggroll, the same Glorious Eggroll who makes Proton GE. Nabara started as just a thing for him and I believe his dad, if you see this, correct me on this, but I'm pretty sure it was him and his dad needed tech support. So put the dad on the thing that you're using. You're making a bunch of gaming modifications for your own system, so you might as well just package it up in case you want to install it on different systems you have. And then, hey, you might as well also publish that. And over time, that generated an audience. It started getting people using it. People knew who he was from his work on Proton GE. Then more developers got involved. And now, even though it started as really a personal project, it has become considerably more than that. For some people out there, the distro is literally just a learning experience. And frankly, this is a lot of what exists in the tech space in general. If you see all of these different Rust projects out there, these rewrites into various different languages, all of the different rewrites of Fetch, most of these are just, I am new to a language, I want to learn it. So if you're new to a language and you want to learn it, is there anything wrong with, I'm new to the Fedora infrastructure, I want to learn it. I'm new to the Debian infrastructure, I want to learn it. And instead of jumping directly into the main project, you get your feet wet with something that has basically zero consequences. You start working on your own distro as just a way to sort of at least get a basic understanding of the tooling being used. If you think about it like that, it starts to make a lot of sense. You don't usually jump into a programming project if all you know is how to do Hello World in that language. So why should you jump into a distro if you don't know anything about how to build packages, how to build distro? Like, that makes sense. And then going from having, this is my personal distro, to publishing this on the internet, making a Reddit post about it, posting about it on Twitter or Mastodon or anywhere else like that, the gap between those two things is very, very minimal. So, hey, you might as well. Some distros out there are 99.99% the distro they're building off of, but have some new piece of tech they're trying to show off. The distro is effectively a tech demo. It's a tech demo for a new desktop environment, some new file system, a new package manager, a new way of handling immutability, and these distros don't need to exist. If you want a place where you can show off a low-level change, right? Getting something like a file system adopted when people are happy on Btrfs or ext4 is really, really hard when they don't actually know why they should care about it. But if you have a thing here that you can just give them that has the thing you want them to care about, suddenly it's a lot easier to care about it. Some of these aren't a tech demo per se, but more of a development environment. Take something like KDE Linux or GNOME OS. These are nightly build distros which exist solely for the purpose of developing KDE or developing GNOME. It is a packaged up collection that has everything in that suite that you can easily just say, this is everything we have. We know it works together. We know that this is what it is doing. And lastly, we cannot forget the simple reason, you're bored? You can? Like, sometimes things don't actually have to have a reason. Sometimes you're like, I want to pick up a new hobby. Oh, I have a guitar back there. I'm gonna play it. Oh, I like Linux. I'm gonna make a Linux distro. And that's fine. Like, that doesn't have to be a reason. You don't have to do anything with it. You don't have to, like, go and start working on a project or use it as a tech demo or have some, like, deep philosophy on what the distro is. You just want to do it. And once you've done that, hey, there's already 1,000 other distros anyway. What's the harm in publishing another one? Here's the thing. Yes, there's 1,000 distros. Yes, there's about 500 actively being developed. Just don't worry about them. Here's a good rule of thumb. If you do a search and nobody mentions it, nobody ever talks about it, if you search a distro name and it doesn't appear on any lists or any posts about it, you probably don't need to care about it. If you want to, hey, explore the world, see what's out there, but you don't need to be subject number one, right? Maybe there is a really cool distro out there that doesn't have a large user base yet. If you want to explore it when you're familiar with Linux, be my guest. But especially if you're new, stick to things that people actually know about, people actually talk about. But that's just me. Maybe you disagree, maybe there is another reason, and maybe you personally made a distro yourself and have a reason for why you did so. Let me know in the comment section down below. If you liked the video, go like the video, go subscribe as well. If you're on mobile, go hype the video, and if you want to become one of these amazing people over here, check out the Patreon, subscribe, Pay, linked in the description down below. That's going to be it for me, and so many.